Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. This is your host, Erin Bradley. And if it's your first time here, you are here for a very special treat as we are releasing this on Friday, February 13th. And I've got a Valentine's special for you because I love you so much. And if you've been listening and following along the podcast forever, you know how much I love and appreciate you being here. We have an incredible episode in store for you today with Michael Maher, who I'll be talking about here in just a moment. But before we jump into that, I want to talk to you about my gift to you for Valentine's Day, sharing a little bit of the love. So, I have been having so much fun inside of our Pursuing Freedom community, the collective, and we've just been seeing the craziest transformational results within honestly 2 to 3 months. Our members are going from feeling stuck, maybe in a funk, or maybe they're doing fine, but they've been feeling overwhelmed, to creating systems and strategies to grow their business with more ease than ever before. And they're having a blast. And that's it. It's like the more fun you have, the more money you make. And we're seeing it all day, every day inside this community. And I really want to get more people to get a taste for it. So the Valentine's gift I have for you is a 1 month trial run for just $111. It's usually $490 a month or a one-time payment of $4,900 for the year. And the reason we're giving it to you for an entire month for just $111 is because I asked my friend over at ChatGPT what number represents love. And it turns out the number 111 represents in numerology self-love, initiation, and new identity. And I was like, hell yes, that is exactly what we're about here at Pursuing Freedom. It represents I am energy. And this number is all about self love before external love, new beginnings, personal power and leadership, alignment with your truth, and choosing yourself first. And it's all about falling back in love with the person you're becoming. I was like, yes, yes, yes. Check, check, check. So here it is. This is your opportunity. If you are listening to this podcast today, please go over to pursuingfreedom.com/love and you can jump in. We meet live every Tuesday, Thursday from 11:15 to 12:15 Mountain Time. That means you're going to have at least 8 opportunities to get in the room with a growing community of real estate agents and mortgage lenders from all over the country that are high vibe. The energy is contagious, the momentum is insane, and you're going to get access to it. And I hope and expect that you are going to love it as much as everybody else. So take advantage of this while it lasts. I love you so much. And now let's talk about Michael Maher, who is a mentor I had never met before. And it was a total fangirl moment to have him on this podcast because he was the author of one of the books that changed my life early in my career, which was The 7 Levels of Communication. And he also co-authored The Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents, which also had a massive impact on my life. So I read The Go-Giver in 2011. If you know my story, that led me to developing the strategy that later became the content in my book, Pursuing Freedom. And around that time, I read The 7 Levels of Communication, which is very infused with Go-Giver principles. It's also chock full of actionable strategies that you can apply to your business immediately. It's incredible. And then 2 years later, I read The Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents, changed my morning routine, totally improved my energy, and I've been on a massive ride and adventure ever since. So I have so much gratitude in my heart for Michael Maher. I think you're going to love this conversation and you're going to leave it inspired, fired up, and ready to take action. And one of those actions should be to say yes to your future self and join us inside the collective, pursuingfreedom.com/love. All right, enjoy this conversation with Michael Maher, and we'll see you next time. All right, so jumping right in, we have the one and only Michael Maher. I mean, this is a long-awaited interview, Michael, because we had this conversation the other day about how I pulled your book off the shelf to try to remember what year did I read The 7 Levels of Communication and have my life forever improved and my business as well. And it was 2013, so almost 13 years ago. And it was so fun getting to meet you on your podcast. And now it's your time to shine. I told you before we started recording, like I'm just gonna shut up and sit back and listen and let you deliver all the gold today. So give us a little backstory and thank you so much for being here. And if you could just share, what was the backstory for you in real estate that led you to bring this book to life, which has changed so many lives, and to develop the community you have now. And we've got so much to cover. I'm just so excited to jump right in.
I appreciate that. And man, this is an honor and a privilege, and I truly appreciate the opportunity to be here. And there's no way I'm going to light up the screen like you did on the Referrals podcast. So I'm just going to do my best and bring it home a little bit and hopefully help the listeners and viewers get a feel for, how they can become more referable and build a business based on love, generosity, and appreciation, which is what I do. Quick story is I got into real estate in 1999. I went from teaching and coaching, and I was really just looking for a summer job. And I actually wanted to invest in real estate pretty much all my life. So I got my license to learn how to invest in real estate. That was really what started it. And then I was buying my first home, and the ladies at the office were just like, "Man, you should totally be in real estate." And so it's like, well, I'm getting my license anyway. Maybe I'll do some summer deals, right? I kind of got in, not even thinking about getting 100% committed into it. And then I got a buddy that was a softball player, friend of mine, who decided to use me as a realtor. And it wasn't because of my competence or communication or character or charm. It wasn't any of that. It was because he wanted to take one for the team. He was like, he didn't want to play all summer and hear about why he hadn't used me as a real estate agent. So it was basically like, all right, I'm going to use you, and you better not mess this up, right? So I luckily they were first time home buyers. They were the only ones that knew less about real estate than I did, thank goodness. And I remember showing them homes, and Aaron, I have to be truthful. I talked them out of many homes early on because I didn't know how to write a contract. I didn't go to a brokerage that necessarily did a lot of training. In fact, training wasn't even a big thing back then. So I didn't know really what the next step was. So I kept talking them out of it. I ended up showing them a new home in a new home subdivision with four models. They fell in love with the third model, and I just thought the gig is up. I'm about to be exposed as a fraud. And we go back to the garage, and the lady in the garage who was running the models in the new home subdivision, she goes, "Well, what do you guys think?" And they both like, "Oh my God, we love number three." And then she goes, "Well, do you want me to write it up?" And I go, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do want you to write that up and make sure there's no funny business in there because I'm going to read every word." And that was a promise. I wanted to read every word so I could learn how to do the contract. And then I just, at a stroke of brilliance, I had gone to a Tuesday meeting a couple of weeks before. I'd gone to two Tuesday meetings the whole time. And one of them was just this fiasco with not doing an inspection on a property. So I said, "Hey, listen, write in that contract that we have the right to do inspections on this property." And so she did. She wrote it in the additional terms and conditions for a new home that was pretty rare in Kansas and Missouri. So it was a little unusual, but she put it in there. We all signed off on it. Well, 2 weeks before closing, we're doing a walkthrough, and I bring an inspector, and the inspector found something pretty major. And so the inspector writes it up, and thank God the builder and the developer were great about it. They just fixed it with no questions asked. They had it fixed before closing, and it was just, I looked like a freaking hero, right? So that went really well. Well, summer softball is about partying. I mean, if you hear that a guy is going to play slow pitch softball, it's really just code word for we're going to drink beers with our buddies. So that's what it was. So I said, "Davey, let's have a party at your house and see if you can get your wife to agree to it. And here's how we'll do it is I'll do beer and pizza, and then you have her invite all of her family and coworkers. You invite your coworkers and family, and then I'll invite the 20 neighbors around just so they know why all the cars are there." And so that's what we did. Invited about 45, 50 people. There were like 30 people there. Long story short, Aaron, I got 11 referrals with my very first client, very first housewarming party about 45 days after closing, and school was about to start. So I was just like super, super busy. And I did teach and coach and do real estate, working with a lot of those people, throughout the fall and winter. And then I turned in my resignation for teaching and coaching, and the rest is history. I did 37 transactions, and then 87 transactions, and 187 my third year, over 200 the next 2 years, and over 300 after that. All by referral.
Okay, I have so many comments and questions, but before we go there, I'm over here laughing so hard because I made the decision to play in an adult softball league in this past summer of 2025. First
So
time
good.
playing softball since like 1997 when I was an all-star as a senior in high school.
Nice.
And the Bad News Bears, we were actually called the Chicos. We made it to the championship, which they had never done in 21 years of being a team. We ended up winning 5 games over a 48-hour tournament weekend. And I mean, I was like sliding with bare knees and throwing and swinging as hard as I could. And I'm telling you, I felt like I had been hit by a truck
Yep.
like a
Yep.
week. And yeah,
Yep.
there was definitely a lot of beer happening. There was a lot of beer
Chico's
happening.
Chico's bail bonds for the
That's right.
championship. Well, I'll make you feel like maybe a little bit better, or maybe a little worse. I don't know, but I play on an adult baseball league to this day, and our team ended up for the first time ever winning in an ultra competitive 35 and over league. We ended up winning. We ended up winning the fall championship last year, which was a really big deal, and then we won the summer championship this last summer. So I still play. And I am thinking about hanging up the baseball cleats and going to the molded rubberized cleats of softball. I'm thinking about going back to softball. It's just easier on the body,
I was
buddy.
like, I had blood dripping down my knees. My husband was like, maybe next year try some wind sprints or something to train. Like I
Yeah,
couldn't
go to the
walk.
gym or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I had to
yoga.
yeah, I had to cancel a golf game because I couldn't walk. But anyway, we're digressing. So let's bring it back
Okay.
home here. So
Yeah.
I have a number of questions. And first I actually want to say thank you because I'm wondering now if it was from your book that we got the housewarming party idea. But one
Hmm.
of my buddies and I started doing that same thing. If we loved the client, if it was
Yep.
sincere,
Yep.
genuinely, then
Yep.
we would host the housewarming party and invite everybody in the neighborhood, invite all their friends. And it was such a fun and easy approach to providing some value after closing and then creating those relationships. And I was just talking about this morning with a coaching client how I used to love infiltrating the community of the people I loved the most, but
That's
like
it.
through
That's it.
authenticity, right?
Yeah.
So can you bring us back a little bit to you just kind of glazed over some awe-inspiring numbers. You said, okay, I retired my teaching job and then did 37 transactions, then 87, then 187, then 200 plus, then 300 plus. So first of all, like maybe this is going to all weave into the strategy that's outlined in the book, which every listener should order right now if you haven't read the 7 levels of communication. But like, talk us through how you went from, okay, I'm a teacher, I did a housewarming party, got 11 referrals, awesome. Now I'm doing 37 deals, 87 deals. Like, how did you even, that's insane. So I
Mhm.
feel like we need to know a little bit more.
Well, interestingly enough, I just remember, all right, so I had 11. Like five of those panned out pretty quickly over the next 6 months. So I mean, it was so crazy, Aaron. I was at school during my planning period. I was not doing planning. Now, this is my fourth year in teaching. So like I had it down. And so I was making calls during planning period. I was making calls between getting done with school and going to practice, which is like 40 minutes. So I was like I just kept communicating, and some of those turned out pretty quickly. Well, I did the housewarming party, and honestly, here's the deal. Davey and Vanessa loved it, but they didn't love it half as much as I did, Aaron, because like this was really the first time in my life that I had professional recognition in a like big way. Now, my first year of teaching, I actually was nominated for the Sally Mae Golden Apple Award as best teacher, but that was so stale and so I don't know. It just what didn't feel like recognition necessarily. But when like everybody was telling me, great job on this house, Michael, like great job on this house, great job with Davey and Vanessa, everybody was so happy. And so, I'm not the sharpest tool in the drawer. or sharpest knife in the shed, whichever one you want to go with there, obviously. But I did catch on really quickly that when everybody was saying, I've never heard of a realtor do a housewarming party before, then I became the buyer's agent who, if you bought a home through me, you would get a housewarming party. And it really grew exponentially from that, to be truthful, because, the next one I'd get 5 or 6 referrals. Well, it turned around and I did one on like December 20th. They wanted to move in before Christmas. And so on December 20th, like I remember that at a housewarming party, you got to realize where were all my clients? It was 11 referrals from Davies. Well, they had been to Davy and Vanessa's housewarming party. Now they were attending another housewarming party a few months later with me organizing it. Well, through their eyes? I mean, I'm successful. I'm the most successful realtor they know by far. And I wasn't screaming my success at them. I was saying I'm successful and I give back to my clientele. So it did spread quite rapidly, exponentially, just from really that one strategy. And like you said, to this day, like we have a lot of downloads that we do. Housewarmingparties.com is our number one download that is most downloaded. That's the one system or checklist and process that they want more than anything. And listen, it wasn't all about housewarming parties. And I definitely established a really good, contract to close checklist, a really good experience from, I did buyer consultations when 99% of the agents didn't do buyer consultations. I sat them down and showed them the expectations of what we were doing. And by the way, in the buyer's consultation, part of that consultation was 30 to 45 days after you close, I'm doing a housewarming party for you. So it was just part of the process. So we didn't get people declining the housewarming party all that much. Though, to be honest, we did follow up with certain clients more than we did others. If one client didn't really push the housewarming party, then we were kind of glad not to do it, if you know what I mean there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's so many things that you shared in the book that became just honestly anchored into my heart, my mind, my soul, and became things that I found myself repeating even today. I was talking with a coaching client about, you leave every interaction with an action item. And I I mean, I just love that because one of the things that created for me was an improvement to my listening skills. I think so often we come into this industry and, the first thing that happens when you take the leap of faith to forego the steady paycheck is you feel this overwhelming uncertainty. It's
mhm,
coupled with hope and excitement and fingers crossed, faith, right? But
yep.
there's also uncertainty. And so we look for the silver bullet or the playbook. And so often I remember in the early years when I would step into the activity that the sales trainer told me to do, it was coming from this empty well of like, I have a void to fill. I need deals. I need money. I need leads.
Mhm,
They're telling me to do this thing so I can get that stuff. And so even in the execution of picking up the phone to make the calls, the dreadful calls, because I was coming from this place of need, I remember just feeling like I was just kind of powering through to check the box to say I made the
mhm,
call so I could tell my coach I did the right thing. And when I read your book and it said, leave every interaction with an action item, it changed everything because I felt a shift within me to be more present in the
mhm.
conversation and to be sort of seeking an opportunity to show value beyond this conversation. I'm curious, how did you get to that point with like, did this all just kind of come from who you are naturally, or was there any mentorship
Mm.
that helped you reframe? Because it is such a powerful reframe that I think is the catalyst between forcing yourself into activity to get something versus feeling compelled to engage because you're seeking an action item, you're seeking a way to be of value. They're two different frequencies to the same destination.
Yeah, 100%. I love the aspect of frequency, right? So a couple of things. Number one is that I didn't want to lose the momentum in any relationship. I wanted to keep the momentum always. Now, in the beginning, I just did it because I liked the feeling of getting more relation. I didn't have very many good relationships. So I was just looking to build good relationships, and it kind of started from that and grew from there to one of the biggest things is always have a what's next. This is what I call the what's next concept. And the what's next concept is every interaction that you have should lead to a future interaction. Like an email is just really the promise of a future phone call. A text message is just the promise of a future phone call. And the phone call is just a promise for a future human interaction. It's either an event or it's going to lead to a one-to-one as we kind of scale and go through the influential zone. But it's one of those where the what's next concept is essentially just always have a what's next with the relationship. There should always be, like, even with the 7 steps to a power note, write your power note and in the PS have them text you for some reason or another. What does that do? It keeps the chain of communication going. Don't break the chain. Don't be the one that breaks the chain. Like, don't always have this chain of communication that adds links. Pretty soon, you have this really strong, big, long chain of a relationship. And, if you falter later or a little bit at some point, you've got this big chain that you can rely on versus, a weak chain or a dotted chain or something with some weak links in it. But the what's next concept is key to everything that we teach. It's always like what is coming. Either an event's coming or a one-to-one is coming or a whatever it may be. There's something always coming. And I even added to that with my buyer's consultation is all right. So I'd explain to them the buyer, hey, listen, we're going to go show properties, going to find one, write an offer, get a contract, do inspections, go through the escrow process. We're going to get you closed. We're going to get you celebrated. And then 30 to 45 days after you close, we're going to throw you a housewarming party. And then 90 days after you close, we're going to do a wealth building consultation. I'm going to bring in a top financial planner, top insurance agent, top business broker, top guys that I know and ladies. And we're going to sit around a table and give you a couple of tips that will help you on your financial journey. And that's 90 days after you close. Well, I had to have something that kind of bridged closing to 90 days because then my event system would kick in. Now they're in my events. And the way to look at it is like, networking is a big part of 7L as well. And networking events are what I call they events. You go to somebody else's event. A housewarming party, even though I was hosting, was really a they event too. It was their people. So you have these they events, and we have these social circles that we're a part of, PTA, your softball team, whatever it may be. And we want them to know we're a realtor or whatever we are. We want them to know, like, we do this thing. We want to market to them, but we can't because it's not appropriate. But what we can do is we can have a we event, right? We have the they events that we're attending. Well, what we're going to do is I'm going to host an event with some sponsors, and we are going to invite them to our event. And that's where it really took off that first summer is when I did a we event, a launch party, where I invited people from my business life, which was not much. I invited people from my teaching and coaching. I invited people from my softball team, and I invited all these they groups, these social circles, brought them in, and they all got to see me as a realtor, right? Had my name badge on, and I talked to them for 3 minutes. I just wanted to bring you guys together. And I know some awesome people. They're in this room. And I just wanted to let you know I'm wholeheartedly focused on real estate and referrals. In fact, all my business right now is referrals. Now you got to realize I had like 7 transactions at that point, which were all referrals. So it wasn't lying, but it was like, it was really telling the truth in a great way. But it's like I just had a launch party and told them, and there were about 50 people at that event. Those 50 people by the way, that was almost my entire sphere of influence at the time. Like they showed up. And then, to this day, I'm still friends with a lot of those 50, and they still give referrals to me, even though I live 1,500 miles away.
I love that. So I have a question for you because
Yeah.
something that you and I chatted about the other day was that you would refer to yourself as an introvert. And
Oh
so
yeah.
this sounds like someone who's introverted would be that'd be their worst nightmare. How did you navigate that? Or did you just kind of suck it up and say, well, this is the strategy that's going to work and it's the most bang for my buck. So
Yeah, it worked. So I kind of sucked it up. And then here's what I've also discovered is that if you're an introvert, like I am horrible, like you asked me to tell my story in the very beginning, like I'm the worst at that of any guest you've probably ever had because I don't have an agenda, first of all. But the second thing is like I have so much trouble talking about myself. If you ask me to instruct on something, I'm fantastic. Let me teach, let me help, go to my passion. But it's one of those where, what I discovered is that I was not comfortable having a lot of conversations, but I knew conversations were the key. So if I'm not going to have the conversations, I need to process them. I need to make or build conversations to happen. Well, what happens at an event? When I had those 50, they all had 6 or 7 conversations times 50, like that's 350 conversations. I probably had 5 conversations, but we had 350 for the same, and that doesn't include when they went to work and talked about what we did the next day. So if you're an introvert, you're just not going to have enough conversations to be able to expand and have this consistent pipeline. So what you have to do is you got to get your extroverts together. I mean, that's who showed up. Like the 50 people were all talking to who goes to events,
yeah,
people who like events and they
yeah.
like to socialize. Well, I rounded up the people that like to socialize and I just had them socialize about me to each other and then gave them some ammunition to go out and socialize with people. And at that meeting, it was like, I just want you to know, like, I'm the buyer's agent that when they buy a house, I'm going to do a housewarming party for them. I'm not going to leave them hanging. I'm not going to, it's not a transactional deal. It's going to be a relational. And guess what? 30 to 45 days after closing, I have accountability. If I don't get them into a great house, then like I have accountability. I'm going to be in that house. So the best place to hide out for an introvert is at a really busy event. The
I
worst
love
place to
that.
hide out is a one-to-one. Like one-to-ones are tough unless you know them. But I discovered that I much preferred events over one-to-ones, which may sound a little conflicting because the top level in the 7 levels of communication is a one-to-one. But we all know that the top level of communication is a one-to-one. There's a level of intimacy. There's a level of energy to a one-to-one. There's just it's just different. If there was one more person in the booth, the entire conversation changes. So, but I just discovered that, and here's the other thing is with an event, you can leverage and scale. One-to-ones don't leverage or scale.
It's funny, all throughout 2024, 2025 on the podcast, as I'm interviewing people that are doubling their business and thriving, while the majority of folks are saying they're dying on the vine, they're struggling. And the one common theme is that those who were experiencing high levels of success in their business in the last few years we're having massive amounts of conversations. And I have said since day one, in any room I'm in, pick up the dang phone, like
Mhm.
pick up the dang phone. And you've talked about how things are going to lead to a phone call. And I'm curious because I know that, you've since developed a massive community and, you're still passionate about these fundamentals, as am I. So I'm curious, do you ever get resistance? And if so, like you make it, in my opinion, your strategy makes it so easy to implement. It removes the resistance. Like it removes the procrastination, the dread, the awkwardness, because it's so clearly reverse engineered.
Yeah.
So, what do you think could ever possibly still create a block for people in today's day and age around avoiding the phone?
I think first and foremost, my entire system is built off an enormous couple fears. And those two fears are the fear of rejection and the fear of failure. So, what I've tried to do is remove all fear of failure and all fear of rejection. I basically like if I'm not going to do it if I'm going to get rejected. I'm not going to do it if I might fail. So I want to set myself up for success over and over and over again. So with the phone call, like we do phone calls differently than anybody else, right? And you know, the way I framed it in 7L was pretty dang harsh, right? Coach said, "Hey, listen, if you have call reluctance, it's because you're selfish. You're thinking about you. You're worried about this. You're thinking about this. You're assuming this. It's all about you. It's in your head, right? That's not in their head. It's in your head. So what you've got to do is if you change the spirit of the call, call with the spirit of helpfulness or generosity. Call to help them. Call to see how you can help. See how they're doing. Just that you were thinking about them. Even to this day, we've evolved the referral mastery system, which used to be the 7L system. The referral mastery system is now we're going to send a pretext. So we're not even going to just pick up the phone. We are literally going to text them and say, "Hey, do you have a couple of minutes?" So we pre-text it. And then if we say, "Hey, do you have a couple of minutes?" They have three answers, right? They say yes, then we say, "Call me." All right, please call me, or call me when you can, or call me as soon as you can. And then if they say no, then you go, "When are you available?" Right? And they say after 5. And it's like, "Okay, call me after 5." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you get the no answer at all, which is an answer. I need everybody to understand that no answer is an answer. So if you get no answer, then in like 5 minutes, you're going to hit a little question button, right? You're going to hit an emoji that puts a question mark to see if they saw the question, right? And then in 5 hours, you're going to hit them with a little meme that is like you waiting by the phone. And there's a lot of cute memes out there that you can send over that just like, "Hey, give me a call," but be friendly about it, right? And, you know, listen, if they never call you, then that's feedback. That's just feedback. You just need to know that, you know, there's probably not a spot in the army for them, if you will, right?
Yeah.
But most people, they either say yes now or they say, "Hey, get with me later, and I'm available after 3. I'm available after 5. I'm available in 15 minutes." And then you're like, "All right, call me then." And maybe you have to remind them to call you. And please notice, how much easier is it to do the phone call, Aaron, if they call you?
100%.
And here's the other thing, there's also a lot of psychology there. Is if they're calling you, you now have the power. That right, they're coming towards you with attraction instead of you chasing. You calling feels like you chasing. And if they call you, then it's not chasing. It's them coming to you.
I'm looking at these numbers again, 37 deals, 87 deals, 187 deals, and I just have to ask, is there somewhere in that little trajectory where there was any kind of implosion before you figured out that you might need to scale in your business? Like, how far did Michael Maher go before you were like,
Yeah.
treading water under a sinking ship of amazingness?
In my second year, when I was doing 87, people hate it when I say, but it wasn't bad. Like I could handle that with not a lot of problem. But what I was having trouble with is with 40 some housewarming parties to do, because we had about 60% of the people actually do housewarming parties. Not everybody did them.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot. So the first hire I made was somebody to help me with the housewarming parties. So they helped me with that. But I had this, you know, Aaron, you're gonna laugh, is because you know Howard Brinton, right? So, you know, rest in peace, one of my mentors. He one of my three biggest mentors in my life. My dad, Howard Brinton, and Zig Ziglar, right? And it's one of those where so Howard came into town into Kansas City my second year in the business, and it was about halfway through the year, and he like had everybody write their goals. And so everybody's writing down or whatever. And then what do you think he told everybody to do?
Double it.
Oh God, right. Right. So double it, right? Double it. And I was like, "I can't double this." He's like, "What do you mean you can't double it?" Right? I mean, it's like I can't double it. And he goes, "Well, what's your goal?" I go, "I want to be the greatest realtor in the history of the world." My second year in real estate, my goal was to be the greatest realtor in the history of the world.
Yeah, it
Right.
can't be any better than the greatest.
And he didn't say anything at that time. But I mean, he just like acknowledged it and goes, "Okay, that would be hard to double." And then that winter, I I did a board of advisors, another event. But this event was for my top people, like the people I respected the most in the city. And and some of them were clients, some of them weren't. But I got around a table and I was just telling them about our numbers and that we were doing, pretty good and that kind of thing. And I thought they were just going to congratulate me and tell me how awesome I was. Well, it didn't go as planned. They literally were like, Michael, you keep going like this, it's going to kill you. The bottom line, the thing that I learned at that board of advisors was that people don't want the greatest realtor in the history of the world. They want their real estate transaction to be the greatest in the world, right?
Mhm.
So it wasn't about me doing everything, it was about delivering an experience. And so that's when I started to build my team and started delivering a better a better experience from beginning to end. And then 187, I did that pretty much me, a transaction coordinator, and then an event coordinator. And then I just built it from there. Added some buyers agents and added a referral manager who oversaw all the referrals and leads and that kind of thing. I had to leverage at some point.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because when I look back and I resisted systems and scale, I thought I want the freedom. Systems sound suffocating.
Yeah,
I'm a free spirit. I'm just going to wing it. And as a result, I had inconsistency. But I think back to on the other side of the decisions to invest back into the business through systems and support, we significantly improved the overall experience for the
yeah,
clients because with more hands on deck, we could add more value, more, bonuses to the experience. We could amplify the communication, systematize, automate, all that kind of stuff. So it is kind of interesting what you said about it. It's not about me doing everything, it's about me delivering the best experience. I sometimes come across people, they're at that crossroads where they are already running on fumes. They're so maxed out and it is time, but they're so overwhelmed, they don't even know where to begin. When you started bringing on the buyer's agents and things like that, did you still stay in the driver's seat of the lead communicator as it related to the promise that you made of how frequently we stay in touch, or did you
yeah.
eventually have somebody communicating on your behalf as well? I feel like that's a major fear in the industry.
So I definitely communicated the most the first couple of years. I still did the buyer's consultations early until I trained the buyer's agents to do them on their own. And nobody did them as well as I did. I mean, that is one thing that nobody ever, and what I discovered is that I needed them to create their own buyer's consultation as
Mhm.
long as it had the characteristics that I wanted. Then all of a sudden they became a lot better. And one guy didn't even do a PowerPoint in the room like I did. He did it through like charted papers, right? And guess what? It was fine. It worked. I got to the point where they were doing it and I was doing the listing presentations. And then I had one buyer's agent who was really good and developing. And so I made her a realtor partner and she was doing listing and she was doing buyers, but mostly listings. And then I eventually had three realtor partners who were doing both. And I mean that took our business to a whole nother level. The systems were doing a lot of the work. And then I would always call the clients 2 weeks before closing. So part of our contract to close was I would congratulate them when they went under contract and kind of overcome buyer's remorse, right? And
Mhm.
then I would call 2 weeks before closing and just congratulate them, let them know you're in the home stretch, anything I need to know. How was the lender? How was the warranty company? How was the inspection company? How was the buyer's agent? How was everything? And they would tell me, right? And then I'd write them a handwritten note and thank them for being a part of the Maher team's, success. And then I would also get them excited about the housewarming party at that point, 2 weeks before closing. I said, I bet you guys are excited to move and get in so you can, entertain your friends and coworkers at a housewarming party, right? That was it. But the systems did a lot of it. We were a system of systems team. In fact, when I went to a listing appointment, any question they asked, my answer was, we have a system for that. Like we
I
have a
love that.
system for that. Well, what about marketing? Well, we have a system for that. And it's like, well, do you want me to explain it? And it's like, yeah, okay. So I'd explain a little bit, and then it's like, well, what about pricing? We have a system for that. It's like, do you want me to explain it? And it's like, yeah, okay. So I'd explain some of it, and then it's like, well, we have a dog. It's like we have a system for that, right? And it's like, do we need to clean up the house? It's like we have a system for that. It's like, what about staging? We have a system for that. Do you do a warranty? We have a system for that. Do you do pre-inspections? Well, we have a system for that as well. So it's like basically I would keep answering, we have a system for that before they started answering their own question with, I bet you have a system for that.
Yeah.
And that made me very attractive. Now, there were times when people were like, they would say something and it's like I would say, we have a system for that. And then I would get in the car and I'd be calling like Sherry and I'd be saying, hey, listen, like we need to get this on the system. We need to get this on the checklist. So, you know, but what happened is that was our entire thing is we had a system for it, or we had a consultation for it, and we really had a plan for anything. And it grew and grew and grew. And, in my opinion, we delivered the best real estate experience, period. I truly believe that. I mean, we had a moving truck that they used to move, and then we would move it if they wanted us to. We would actually move their stuff and put it in their house before they got there. We would give them a hotel stay the night of closing, and then the stuff would be in their house the next day. So
Amazing.
like we did a lot of fun stuff. We did a lot. I miss selling real estate. I really do. I really miss it. I do, because of the experience that we delivered and the wows and the ahas and just the look on their faces when we did the thing. I mean, when you showed a Maher property in Kansas City, like you knew it because we had smooth jazz playing throughout the house, which the research was like, what is the best music for sales? Well, I had attended a new home sales conference, and they had done all these different research grants on like what music to play in model homes, and the number one was smooth jazz. So they found out it actually increases the time people
Oh
stayed.
my gosh.
It tapped into a certain part of their brain and all. So I was like, smooth jazz, and then like I did all this research on like smells, because the number one memory sense was smells. And it's so funny is I remember early in my career, like clients would call something like the fart house, or they would call it the dog house, or they would like, because it smelled like blank. So we did Glade plugins at every one of our listings in Ocean Breeze scent, so that when you walked in, like it looked like $1 million, it sounded like a million. I don't care if it's a $140,000 house or a $1.4 million house. It looked like $1 million, smelled like $1 million, and it sounded like $1 million. So you knew, like as soon you didn't even need to see the sign in the yard. Like you knew it was a Maher team listing by how it smelled, how it sounded, and that it looked impeccable.
I love it. And I love how you said earlier, like we had so much fun and we did this, because it's one of those things where a lot of agents and lenders, they get stuck. Like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, And I always say, like, we had so much more fun
Mhm.
after we expanded the capacity to be able to do the things we did, because I simply could never have done a fraction of what we ended up doing if
Yeah,
I stayed in this solo journey. And it was just so like, it was so fun. Like, we were like, well, that was amazing. What else could we do? What else could we do?
that's
And it
right.
was like, the more hands on deck, the more capacity, the more expansion, the more impact, the more, the more love, the more visibility, all the things. So talk me through, it's ironic to me that these books found me in the time that they did, and at the timing of the journey that I was on. But having stumbled upon the 7 levels of communication in 2013, and then in 2015, my business had more than doubled on the heels of bringing on one team member who was one of my best friends. And then I always joke that we started dragging bodies onto a speeding train as I started hiring more loved ones and more loved ones. But 2015 was this year of massive growth, and at the same time, just massive overwhelm, because
Mhm.
we went from with 2 people doing 17 closings in 1 month, and it was just crazy. And that's when someone gave me the miracle morning for real estate agents.
Mhm.
And it was funny because I don't think I knew when I got the book that it was going to be a continuation of the fiction story of the character in the 7 levels. And I loved it, but it also was another absolutely life-changing point I mean, it was a game changer in my life because from that point forward, I've never lived without a morning routine. So,
Mm.
how did you find yourself connected to Hal Elrod? How did you two end up bringing the Miracle Morning for real estate agents to life? And, talk us through that story because it's wild.
You're not going to believe it was a referral, will you? So it was a referral, and so in 7L, I wrote about the four enriching rituals, which is now the five enriching rituals. So the five enriching rituals are the Sunday night ritual, which is to prepare for the week, reflect on the past week, prepare for the week, like meal planning and outfit laying out, and doing that kind of thing. And then on then you have the morning ritual, you have the start of your workday ritual, which we call a pro launch, professional launch ritual. And then we had the pre-leave ritual, which is when you're done working, right? And then we have the nightly ritual. So those are the five enriching rituals. And I had talked about the four enriching rituals in 7L, and one of those was the morning ritual. And I had, interestingly enough, it was very similar to the miracle morning, right? The ritual that Hal was talking about. Well, we both had the same coach. So his name is James Malinchak out of Las Vegas. And I had been working with James and having fun with it and that kind of thing. And then when Hal went to James's house for his like 5 hour meeting, which was I mean, like James's coaching was great, but the 5 hour in his house was catalytic. Like it was a catapult to your next level. And one of the things that Hal was talking about at the time is like I've got this book, and how could I maximize it? How can I, market it? How can I get the word out more about it? And James was like, I mean, your book is set up to do like chicken soup for the soul and go for and just so you know, James Malinchak also coached Jack Canfield.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so the chicken soup for the soul thing was pretty top of mind for James. And so he said, well, Mayor's got a following in real estate. Why don't you connect with him? And so James did a three-way text with Hal and myself, and it ended up that it clicked. And I was kind of 3 years after 7L came out, I was kind of looking for like, I want to branch off from 7L, and this kind of made the most sense that Hal and I would team up together and do one for real estate. And the rest is history. It's done very, very well, and we've changed a lot of lives with the morning ritual.
100%. I mean, that's why it's such an honor to have you on the show because I can't tell you how many people I have gifted those two books to or have recommended or I mean, I gave signed copies of your books. I hope you like this as much as I did. Like I mean, they both were I mean, it was the Go Giver in 2011, it was
Yep.
Seven Levels in 2013, 2015, and it's crazy because when you think back on your those pivotal moments in your life story or your business, journey, each time I read one of those books, it was a wake up call and it was like instant implementation and then instant transformation. So
Mm.
for anybody listening, just highly recommend both of those. And now you're working on number three. There's not been another one since. So can you talk
No.
us through what we can expect is coming on the horizon a little bit, a little sneak preview?
I mean, let me ask you. So you're an avid reader. How many books do you think you've read?
Uh,
Come on. That
like hundreds,
maybe thousands. Would you say
maybe.
maybe thousands?
Yeah, because I mean, there was a time where I was probably reading one a week, but some of them, yours included, they have tattered pages and folded corners, and they've been
All
highlighted
right,
and
quit
scribbled
promoting
on.
my book so much.
No,
All
I'm
right,
not.
they're going to get tired of it.
I'm not
But
talking smack. This is not bullshit. I'm dead serious. But what I'm saying is that there was a point at which if something spoke straight to my soul, then there wasn't going to be just read one time. It was going to
that's
be
right.
read and practiced until it became new behavior.
So first of all, I mean, how much of an honor do you think this is for me to hear you talk so highly about 7L and American Morning for Real Estate Agents? You've read lots of books and you're like, those are good books, right? So what's the best book you've ever read on morning rituals?
It would have to be The Miracle Morning. It changed my life.
Right. All right. So what is the best book you've ever read on referrals?
Honestly, it would have to be Seven Levels.
Okay. What's the best book you've ever read on marketing?
Marketing. I'm stumped on that one. I'm looking over there because I think there was like not specific to marketing, but like Atomic Habits, the 12-week year, like they were really instrumental in
Yep.
me creating a pattern through which I performed the execution of my
So
marketing.
what's your favorite book on habits? What's the best book on habits?
I like Atomic Habits or
Yeah.
Willpower Doesn't Work.
Yeah, James Clear, right, with Atomic Habits, or maybe right. And so what's the best book on time management? What's your favorite book on time management?
Time management. It's a little bit more obscure, but I really like a book called When.
Is it WIN or WHEN?
WHEN.
I have never heard that. I'm writing it down. I can't, I mean, I've read over 2,500 plus books and
What
I
did you
love,
think I was going to say?
I didn't know. I don't know these answers. That's what I
The
love
12
about
week
it is,
year is obviously up there too.
yeah. So what's the best book you've ever read on leadership?
Um, I love Leaders Eat Last.
Okay.
And what is it? The seven highly effective,
7 Habits of Highly Effective People with Mr. Covey.
yes, and Good to
Yeah.
Great.
Yep. All right. What's the best book you've ever read on events?
The upcoming Michael Maher future
Boom. You
bestseller.
knew where I was going.
I don't have
Like,
it.
there is no favorite book on events.
That's right.
So that's what I'm writing. I'm writing the best book ever on events. That's what I mean. I like it's overdue. Like as I told you in the pre-show, it's like I wrote 7L and I wrote it and it's like, man, I did, by the way, there are strategies I left out of 7L that I only did some of the times. But every strategy that's in 7L, I could stand in front of an audience and say, I do this, I'm passionate about it. Here's why. I love it. You should do it too. It just like so I wrote about him and I wrote about the housewarming parties and Jay Michaels runs an event and talks about and Rick goes to the convention with Michelle and that kind of thing. And it's just one of those where like one thing that kind of stuck in the back of my head was I didn't write about events enough. You can run a really really awesome business from 7L just doing what 7L tells you to do. But we've grown from like relationship mastery to referral mastery. And 7L is really relationship mastery, in my opinion. It's big, how to win friends and influence people combined with the go giver sells real estate. That's 7L. That's what
Yeah.
it is, right? I mean, I read How to Win Friends and Influence People 22 times. I've read The Go Giver 10 to 12 times, and you and I both know Bob Berg and consider him a friend, right?
Yeah.
So so that is relationship mastery. Well, there's these two pillars of what I teach. One of them is self mastery, which the miracle morning fits underneath, right? So it's self mastery is about habits and time blocking, time management, and really first lead yourself and first love yourself. Like fly. If you truly want to fly, first love yourself, first lead yourself. It's really hard to love on others when you haven't first developed a love for yourself. So that's the self mastery pillar. And we have the relationship mastery pillar that the solution is basically written in 7L, which is how to win one on one. How do you win one on one in relationships? And the answer is generosity, right? So then we have this third pillar of referral mastery, which is event mastery. So, unlike self mastery, which is one to none, or
Hmm.
relationship mastery, which is one to one, done in very intimate settings, event mastery is one to many, one to infinity. And it is the scalable, leverageable arm of referral mastery. And so that's the pillar that I have to write about and expand upon is event mastery, is what we're doing with events. We're changing lives with local events. Like people are, I mean, I have a